Okay, we're streaming. I'd like to call the Southbury Board of Selectmen special meeting agenda February 17th of 2022 to order at 6:05. Is that close enough? Can we have the pledge of, 6:03, can we have the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Friendly reminder to make sure your mics are close and on when you speak. First up is the Registrar of Voters Redistricting. Joe? Is Joe, who's speaking? Go ahead, Joe.
Well, as,
You
Go
got-
ahead.
is this
No,
on?
just-
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Well,
on.
as we know, the state has done the redistricting, and how that affected us, we have no control over districts, congressional district, not the congressional district, but the state legislative district, 131 and 69. They made a different line, and by doing so, they've taken some of our voting District 2 into our voting District 3 by doing that, and eliminating part of what was in District 3 and putting it in our voting District 2. So as a result, District 2 became about 1,790 voters more than District 1. Well, that was the difference between the two. And the other way around, District 1 had more than District 2. So what we wanted to do, we cannot change the line between the two legislative districts, but between District 1 and 2, which are all part of the 69th, we changed our line a little bit to incorporate some of the voters from District 1 into District 2 without overloading District 2. So with the new line, whoops. With the new line, District 1 went from 7,297 after, the way they left it after the state did it, to, we made a new line that took 512 voters from there,
And put them into,
put them in District 2. So the difference between the two are now 760-something instead of 1,790. District 1 is a little bit of easier place to vote. It's got more real estate, and that keeps the flow going a lot more. You can put more privacy booths up. District 2 in the library, it's got a small real estate, yet it has a nice area for lines that's sheltered, but you can keep the lines moving a little bit better by not having that many voting booths. So I think the disparity of about 700 and something works very well, with more in District 1 at the firehouse than in District 2 at the library.
the parking over at the firehouse is much more usable for people than the library, which the library, as we all know, parking and driving through there is not good.
Yep.
We have a lot of mishaps there. We've had to have the police over there to get people through, where at the firehouse, there are problems, but nothing like what we have at the library.
So that's that in a nutshell, really. I don't know if you have a question on how we did this and why.
What's the process for informing everybody about their new districts?
Correct.
Right.
We're going,
Yeah,
postcards are gonna go out
Yeah.
telling people where they were, where they're going to.
yeah. We're going to talk a little bit with Dan about maybe the best way of doing that financially to get some postcards out. So, but that's the process.
There are about 1,200 cards, 11 to 1,200 cards that'll have to go out for people to change people.
Yeah,
So that's the total shift.
yeah,
Yeah. The village has not been touched.
right.
That's
Stays
as
intact.
is, it stays as is.
Perhaps we'll talk about maybe, I mean, every time we have a vote, people get confused about where they're going anyway.
Yeah.
Even though you haven't redistrict, maybe we'll look into, instead of just 1,200, maybe we would send out, maybe, I don't know if it's possible, we'll look into it, of letting everybody know where their district is by address. And maybe even if it costs a little more, maybe it makes a little more sense to inform everybody in the households, by the way, this is your district, not that even the people who are redistrict, everybody, maybe that'll help.
Right.
And one thing to keep in mind is every time someone registers to vote or makes a change in their registration, they get a letter stating the change or that they're accepted, and it tells them what district and where it's located that they vote at.
They get it as soon as it comes into the
Yeah.
office, online.
Okay. Any other questions? All right. I think there's a resolution later in authorizing it, okay?
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Public comments is next. We'd like to limit it to 2 minutes. If you could state your name if you're going to make a public comment.
Okay, Ed Edelson, 609B Heritage Village. Hope you can hear me. Former Chief Justice Warren Burger famously said that the claim of an individual's right to own firearms is, quote, one of the greatest pieces of fraud, I repeat the word fraud, on the American public by special interest groups that I have ever seen in my lifetime, close quote. The activities of the past week may indeed be seen as a turning point in reversing that fraud. The landmark lawsuit against the manufacturer of the weapon that Adam Lanza used less than 10 miles from here to take the lives of Sandy Hook elementary students and teachers will send a shockwave to the manufacturers. I believe the documents that will be made public as a result of this settlement will show the duplicity of the so-called gun rights organizations that Justice Burger spoke about 30 years ago. Also of note this past week is the leadership of Governor Lamont in his proposals to reduce gun violence in the state. I and other Southbury citizens attended a rally at the Capitol on Monday to address the rise in community violence by supporting Governor Lamont's legislation. Gun violence is up in many Connecticut communities. We need to better understand why. I see it as a combination of the mental health impacts of COVID-19 pandemic and the rise of gun ownership, including the illegal sale of guns. We need more research and involvement on this, as clearly our current national approach is not working. I would hope that given our town's history with the horrific gun violence less than a decade ago, this board would show its support for the governor's package by writing a letter to our state legislators asking that they support these important initiatives to reduce gun violence. It's something that we should all be behind. Thank you.
Okay. Any other public comment? Seeing nobody out there, any other public comment, and any other public comment? Hearing none, we'll move on to reports, which you have in front of you. Next is up is the consent agenda. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second? Any discussion?
Do I
Here-
need to abstain?
You're abstaining from one particular,
Just the part that
which part?
affects me. That would be the appointment to the Energy Task Force.
So you're abstaining from the Energy Task Force part of the consent agenda.
Thank you for helping me navigate that.
Okay. Anything else? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? And it carries. Minutes of February 3rd, 2022, regular meeting. Can I have a motion?
Motion to approve?
Is your mic on? Okay, that's right.
Lights
Motion to approve by Jason. A second?
Yep.
John, second it. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? It carries. There is no unfinished business. New business. Registrar of Voters redistricting request. Motion resolved that the Southbury Board of Selectmen hereby approves the attached redistricting map as presented by the Registrar of Voters at this meeting. Do I have a motion?
So moved?
Can I have a second? Justin?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion?
just thank the registrars for coming tonight and presenting and for their work in dealing with the redistricting and the shift and trying to straighten this all out for us.
Yeah,
Thank
thank you.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? It carries for Selectmen's report. It's been a little short week for me, as everybody knows. It's been 2 days back. On the next March meeting, I will talk with Justin Betty, the 350th anniversary, which you brought her to our attention. It's been in the background. We'll come up with some ideas. Maybe you and I get together and see what we can do, and then we'll present. It'll be the 2023, the 350th.
Crazy.
Yes. We're also working on, just so you know, there's going to be, we're working with a group of people, including Ed Edelson, on, I forget the anniversary date
85th.
of the balloons.
Bund, yeah.
Yeah, so that'll also be coming out with that. Other than that, I'm catching up with a lot of things that are getting back, so if we can move to any questions? All right. Reports from the liaisons. Selectman Betty.
EDC met last night. They're working hard on the final pieces of the upcoming dog parade. It actually looks like it's gonna be pretty fun, and so they're working hard on that. And
Justin, do you have a dog?
I don't,
You want
no,
to borrow one for the parade?
no. I've got 2 young kids, I think that's, and a lot of clients, that's enough, you know? And of course, we got an update from Kevin about the many things that are going on around town with, you know, pre-approval, lots of good stuff going on in the EDC pipeline as far as businesses coming in and expanding, et cetera. I did have to step out of that meeting early because IPOC also met last night. As usual, things are going very well with the 3 accounts. There is, I think the word that the chair used, some queasiness on his part, and also Finance Chair Michael's part about the equity markets and where they may be headed this year. And based on that, what's the term? The proportions of certain investments have gotten a little bit large. So the equities are a little bit overweighted from where we're supposed to be. So they were going to work on, even today, I think, with Dan, getting those back into the proper proportions, just in case there's a significant correction in the equities market.
I would urge board members, if they have the time, and I wasn't able to make it, if you do have the opportunity to understand how they reproportion and the limits, it would be good to understand that. If you could just if you had a chance to listen to them, sometimes it makes your head hurt. But these are very smart people who've done a great job.
We're blessed with not only FIA, who we've been with for over a decade now, but also the members of the panel who are, you know, I'm the least fiscally able to join the conversation of anybody in the room, but we're blessed with some very smart folks, and it's borne out in the way that the accounts have performed. They performed tremendously. I mean, the library account's up to almost $3 million now, which,
Yeah.
you know, 10 years ago that was not really conceivable. So things are going well, and of course there's a lot of caution as well, which is good and warranted. Strategic plan met last week. We all got an update from John Monteleone. The one thing that wasn't on there that I was asked to bring forward is that, you know, as they're getting into the whole solar thing, they're thinking that they might need sort of a working group that would pull some people from the Energy Task Force and maybe some other town residents that are experienced with solar install and the business side of it, so that they can really get into what the different options are and what the best options might be if we were to do anything in that. So that's something they asked me to bring here and see if we want to okay that or create that. And then ARPA's meeting next Thursday before our meeting, and that is it for me right now. Thank you.
Jason?
Yeah, as Justin said, ARPA's next week. LEPC was moved. They were supposed to be last week. They were moved to March. So, and the EMS hasn't met. The only board that met was library. So a couple things going on there. The Friends reported that they're hoping to have their sale in the basement this year. They're eyeing the weekend of April 28th with a donation day on April 2nd. And there'll be more information on that probably over the next month so people can get their donations in, and it's always a successful event. John Michaels was at the meeting because John and Shirley are giving a gift to the library for the terrace. Apparently when the library was built, they had all these different rooms and whatnot and that you can name, and nobody ever took that, and they want to do some work out in the terrace, so they purchased the naming opportunity there, which is it's a significant gift. And then there'll be more information about what they're going to be doing out there. What are the other things? The Friends I mentioned last time are giving $20,000, up to $20,000 to the library board to use in its discretion for certain projects that might be needed at the library. So the board is continuing at each meeting to evaluate what might be appropriate. They approved the gift fund budget, and then the only other thing is the Southbury Library is participating in the Passport to Connecticut Libraries program, which I guess is something that was stalled, over the last year or two. It's a statewide program where you get like these passports, and if you go around and go to 5 libraries around the state, there's prizes and whatnot. It's a cool program, so encourage you to check it out.
Is it
That's
any
it.
5 libraries or 5
I think the ones participating, which I think that there's a lot of libraries that participate in this stuff.
Okay.
So,
Are you all set?
yes, thanks.
Okay. John?
Conservation Commission and Parks and Rec have not met since we last were together. They will meet next week, and I will report back from that.
Thank you. Greg?
All right, so this week, both the Energy Task Force and Senior Services Commission met. Energy Task Force met this past Tuesday. The group continues to move forward in a positive way, thinking on how an electric microgrid would benefit the town. I think it was correctly realized at this last meeting that the task force and the town isn't at a place where we'd be able to meet deadlines. They were talking about getting into the state's new virtual net metering program, lottery. And the way that's structured is that to get into that, the deadline is coming up in the next, I believe, month. And we're just not at a place where that's going to be feasible. So I think wisely it was decided to take the time and resources and prepare for next year if that's possible. So in all of that discussion, there was talk, some cool talk about other towns and how their microgrid projects are going. You have Coventry that's sort of in the middle of that process and going to construction. And I think there's an effort to try and identify other towns that have completed it. And then we threw around the idea of a field trip. So lots of interesting things. And I think those are good opportunities to, I guess, benchmark and see what other towns are doing, how they've gone through their process, and if there's anything that we can glean from that to, to make our journey successful. So in a separate but parallel effort, and Justin alluded to that, the task force continues to explore what would be needed to bring solar on a town-wide scale. Of course, your solar and your microgrid kind of tie together, but they're two separate projects. But taking a look at what that might look like, so that's moving forward. Senior Services Commission, they met yesterday, and Director Rossi was pleased to mention in her report that the 5310 grant for new bus continues to move forward. And I believe yesterday or today they met with Public Works to review schematics on the bus and all the other details of the insides of the bus and all those decisions that have to be made to move forward to make that happen. Two separate audits that were reported on. One, The Department of Senior Services is preparing for an internal audit. Positive mindset, they expect that to go smoothly, and certainly open to anything that they find that needs to be acted on. Director Rossi also heading up an audit looking at potential discrepancies with one of the vendors that they're using. That's expected to produce some good accountability for the town. Other commission members expressed their concern with a need for an increased path of communication between the town and seniors. I thought it was an interesting conversation. We were talking about an increased presence for, an information path for seniors on the website and what that might look like. Recommended that, they think about exactly what they want. Go to Gosha. Anytime I've ever talked to Gosha, she's certainly receptive to, hearing those things, and I'm sure she'd be, happy to collaborate with that, with what the commission sees as useful. Lastly, the commission approved to explore a plan to replace the now defunct Are You OK program. I don't know if a lot of people know. I was familiar actually with Naugatuck has this program. It's for seniors. It's a program where there's a system set up in place, and different towns run it a little differently, but whether a member of this program, a senior, calls into a specific number by a certain time every day, or the town calls out to that senior every day, it depends. And in this case, the program was sort of run through the police department, and the short story is that the old computer and the old software have met the end of their lifespan. And so there was a very nice conversation about that, about, again, using a communication path out to the community and seeing if it would be reasonable to move forward and looking to replace that program with a new one. Some positives to that, at least I think, as I understood it from the police department's perspective, that the program would be shifted from where it was to this point. The primary responsibility of the police department would shift over to senior services, and then there'd be a threshold met in that new system where, if warranted, the police department would be notified for follow-up. So that's more information, to come on that. So lots of good stuff. That is my report. Thank you.
So just in case somebody picks up on the public or in the press on the audit on the senior center, it is a lottery type thing that auditors pick. It's not specific because there's an issue. They could have picked, there's other departments that are gonna, it's just a routine as part of our auditing program. So I just wanna put people at ease that it's not specific to the senior center. It's just, it's a routine. They can't audit everything, every time, every detail, but they pick this, they decide to go. And that's what, just so that the public and the seniors and the press understands that. I want to make clear before the phones start ringing about auditing the senior center, because there's a problem. There's not a problem, it's just routine.
Thank you for clarifying
Justin knows how that,
We've had a robust auditing program in the 13 years I've been involved, and that's a very good thing.
it's definitely. Okay. Holly,
All right, so Region 15 had a meeting on February 14th. General housekeeping made some motions to just transfer some funds to purchase some new smart TVs for Gainfield, but I think overwhelmingly the most notable thing to bring back was the discussion around the lifting of the mask mandates in school. Superintendent Smith did send out a communication to Region 15 parents over the weekend, letting them know that as of March 1st, barring any changes coming from the state or from the Department of Health, the expectation is that children in Region 15 will have the option of whether they or their families choose to have them to be in masks, as well as staff, from what I understand. There were a couple things that they wanted to stress, or that he stressed in this communication that they are still doing. They're continuing to maximize ventilation. They're continuing to promote self-monitoring and symptom testing, continuing to promote hygiene practices and respiratory etiquette. They're continuing to provide masks to those staff members or students who request them, and will continue to provide at-home tests for staff and families who request them, as long as they have supplies available. So that it's, I don't wanna make it sound like it's a, it's not like we're just done, they're still taking some proactive steps to make sure that things are kinda tapered along, but I know when I told my 8-year-old daughter that the, light is in the end of the tunnel, she cried real tears of joy, she misses her friends' faces, and I think it's a positive step in the right direction, so very optimistic.
Okay. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
John, moved,
Second.
seconded by everybody. Okay, all in favor? Aye. And we're adjourned. Thank you.